I'm the Executive Director at the MIT Enterprise Forum of Cambridge. Tonight's esports event came together through a collaborative effort with a number of MIT Enterprise Forum chapters. So before I introduce our moderator, Giovanna, and hopefully Jamie King can get on because we were having some technical issues. I want to thank the really great group of folks, volunteers who worked really hard to put this together and bring this event to you tonight. So I just want to give a shout out to Catherine Bunn, Kelly Lamb from our Atlanta chapter, Robert Sepulveda and Jose Castellanos from our South Florida chapter, Rupert Von Butler, Lisa Friedman, and Joe Carangelo from our San Diego chapter. Thank you so much. This is kind of the first of its kind group effort. Yay, Jamie, you made it. Group effort on the Enterprise Forum part because, you know, we're all at home. There are no borders anymore, and we figured we'd bring you some great thought leaders from coast to coast. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Giovanna. But just one quick comment, if you can use the Q&A to type in your questions, we're going to stop periodically and you know, address those questions. So feel free to raise your hand, ask questions, and we'll call on you accordingly. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Giovanna.
Thank you, Katja. Thank you all for coming, for being here for this exciting presentation. My name is Giovanna Fessenden, and I'm an intellectual property attorney. I've got a background in computer science and have expertise in esports, gaming technologies, blockchain, non-fungible tokens, wearables, all different areas of technologies. I'm passionate about esports, and I would love to see the esports ecosystem thrive. Today, we're going to dive in and learn about the economics of esports, and as well as opportunities for new startups, for entrepreneurs. And we have the honor of having distinguished speakers from all different aspects of esports and the gaming world today. I will introduce them briefly and let them say a few words about themselves. And let's start with Asante Bradford. He is the project manager for digital entertainment and emerging media for the Georgia Department of Economic Development. Asante, can you please say a few words about yourself?
Sure. Well, first off, hello, everyone, and really excited to talk about what's going on in this space. We're really excited what's going on in Georgia, but also really quickly, I want to thank the MIT Enterprise Forum for a relationship we've had over years. You guys are tied in with Georgia Tech, so I've actually been on a few of these, and I just want to thank you for inviting me to this. Yes, as far as myself, I work for the state of Georgia, and my job is digital entertainment, to kind of grow the digital entertainment for the state. So gaming and animation are a big part of what we do as far as growing the talent and recruiting companies here. And now we have over 160 game companies in Georgia and over 100 animation companies in Georgia. So we're really excited what's happening in this space. So love to share. And I always just think it's very beneficial for all of us to share information that can always help.
Awesome. Thank you, Asante. Well, next I would like to introduce Gayatri Sakar. Gayatri is the managing partner at Hype Sports Innovation. Gayatri, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me. And as I was saying before, I'm wearing my husband's sweatshirt. He went to MIT for 7 years. So I see a lot of opportunities that are coming out of MIT, and there's definitely a lot of, the engineers that they want to get into the gaming system, and also opportunities in the hardware sectors. I come from a pure tech background, physics, math, and worked for Hewlett Packard, IBM. Then I moved more on the finance side, worked for Goldman, Federal Reserve Bank. I had a sports fund of our own, and I sold that fund. Currently, I'm a partner at the world's largest sports accelerators. We run accelerators all over the world. Currently, due to COVID-19, everything is virtual. I remember when COVID hit, we were just about to launch our world's first esports accelerator with ESL and SK Gaming. And it was supposed to be launching at Cologne, Germany. And we had to take it down and think about what are the better ways we can serve the early stage community? So my perspective in this panel, and especially I'm super excited to be with Asante and Jamie, is just from an investor perspective. We write checks at the early stage, and we also write checks at a late stage globally. We are more focused towards facilitating this amazing environment. And when it comes to the early stage, we have relationship with all the clubs and federations of the world. So we welcome the early stage startups to pilot their products with some of the bigger names in the industry. So for us, we just want to give them access and be a part of their journey and help them as much as we can.
Awesome. Thanks, Gayatri. Jamie, Jamie King, tell us about yourself.
I thought I made it. All you entrepreneurs out there, hello, and Gayatri is absolutely who you need to talk to. Hello, everybody. Thank you for including me on the panel. My name is Jamie King. I've been in the games industry since '97. I was very fortunate. I got to be a co-founder of Rockstar Games and really was sort of at the forefront of cultural innovation inside of video games. And then, after being a part of Rockstar, I was very focused on mobile and free to play and microtransactions and all these new business models. And then in 2013, I got very into esports. And now I'm head of esports and gaming at Engine Shop. And I've been really lucky, and we've had great partners, worked with Major League Soccer and launched their EMLS, which is like a premier FIFA league in North America. And then I work with non-endemic brands like Bud Light, all the Anheuser-Busch family, Mercedes-Benz, and also doing a lot of work with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. We've launched #TiltCancer, really to sort of, evangelize and, the great research and work that LLS do to help beat blood cancers. So, pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie. So today our discussion is a panel discussion, and I will be moderating the panel. I will pose questions to each of the panelists, and we will start a dialogue to talk about the esports economy. Please feel free to answer questions in the to ask questions in the question and answer box, and we'll try to address some of them during the presentation. So let's kick this off. Let's talk about the economics of the esports industry. Let's give it to Jamie. So Jamie, the economics of the esports industry are pretty complicated, with game publishers having control of the IP in the industry. It means that entrepreneurs, startups in the industry have to be even more strategic, even more thoughtful, and in order to thrive. So what sort of advice would you give to a startup or an entrepreneur in this business?
Well, it's funny because, if I had finger puppets, it'd be like, oh, there's so much money in esports and it's amazing and it's taking over the world. And then the other one would say, where's the money? There's no money in esports. You can't make any money in esports. I think that the economics of, gaming is enormous. Esports is the shiny new toy. Why esports is very exciting is that the fandom, right, and the participation in esports, that audience, call them super users, call them what you want, they are very tech savvy, very into new technologies, they are highly educated, they are affluent, and they're like leaders amongst their peers. So it's a very, the fans and esports enthusiasts are a very powerful segment, right, in terms of consumers. I think COVID's been a really interesting phenomenon, obviously for all of us, but the concepts of, esports is COVID proof, right? And I think definitely the digital native nature of esports and all of its strengths has really been evidenced during COVID. In the last 15 years, we've heard a lot about it's in a bubble, right? And it is true, like most other industries, not everyone makes money. And I think if you look at just to take the top 10 esports organizations and their revenues and their earnings and where those earnings came from, a large percentage didn't come directly from esports. Saying that, esports is like the new, is like culture, and is incredibly social, and is connecting all these different components and opening the doors and like multiple new touch points for brands. And so it's even though like, oh, it's $1 billion industry, and video game, it's like 180 billion, and every time you see a statistic, it's out of date, and it's always underrepresenting the value. It's a very important driver for a lot of segments in the like larger gaming economy.
Asante, what do you think? What opportunities do you see for entrepreneurs and startups in this space?
I think I'm gonna follow along with Jamie. It's a gold mine, but it's literally being defined as we speak. So at least in the USA, it's relatively new in the US, but it's been obviously huge in Asia and in Europe, but mostly Asia for a long time. Matter of fact, it's literally, I know in Korea when I visited, it was like number 1 or 2 industry, which is amazing. So they've been at it a lot longer than we have, but now that it's getting here and our publishers are getting into it, I think the opportunities are being defined as we speak, because there's esports, we could talk gaming a little bit different than esports, but to me, now you're literally bringing in a new niche that is being defined. So what was exciting about us for Georgia is that we did really well. We're doing really well in the film industry, one of the top places. And when I was looking at it, I actually went to Gamescom in Germany, and literally we had one of our game companies that actually screened one of their games, high res, Smite, and 25,000 kids watching this thing on the screen there. And this it blew me away. But I walked behind and I literally saw all the broadcasting going on. I'm like, wait a minute, this is just TV stuff going on. So I think when you talk about esports, there's so many components, again, that are just being defined, such as the broadcasting part here. We're blessed that we have Warner Media, I'm sorry now. They do E-League here, right? And even that model, I was always a little like, wait a minute, man, these kids don't really watch television, do they? So, but they have done well, and then, so my point, I guess, in your question, I'm sorry, I'm taking a little long to get to it, but I think it's literally being defined as we speak. So the opportunities are endless, but what's so great, and I think what Jamie's talking about, you're talking about a young demographic that you are inspiring who love this stuff. So for us in the state of Georgia, it just made sense because kids are naturally moving in this way, right? And then our colleges, you have scholarships now, and you have all these opportunities. And literally here in Georgia, it's a sanctioned sport. So again, if you're not good in basketball or football, now you can only get a Letterman's jacket for your esports team, which I just find very, very cool, man. So anyway, to answer your question, I'll take a long time to get to it. I literally think it's being defined as we speak. And I think you're going to see different elements coming in as it grows and develops. And I think the hot hits and the different things, not just the game side of it, but the broadcasting side of it, the PR marketing side, there's so many. I think, getting to that next question there's so many niches already, in this space. So again, you have to find what your niche is if you want to get in it. So when you get the opportunity, what are you good at? What do you love doing? You can be, social media part, event manager, agents. We have one of the top attorneys here in Georgia for esports who brings so many great projects in Georgia because he is there, they're his client. Anyway, so I would say, to answer your question there, I don't know, because it's still.
It's until you're right. There are tremendous amount of opportunities. And I think, look, and Gayatri would sort of know this in terms of any industry, it's about, when they talk about the California gold rush, it's about the picks and the shovels. I think there's tremendous opportunities for SaaS businesses. The whole way that games are going and esports are going is like games as a service, right? We even see like esports organizations offering subscription access And these games are now living with us for a much longer amount of time. And the connected services and support services, so tournament organizing, event calendars, data aggregation and scraping,
Right.
broadcasting. To Asante's point, there is all of the marketing, there is the PR, there is like for the streamers, right? There's Streamlabs, right? Then there's communication tools, right? Look at Discord and what a huge hit that's been, right? You've got the tournament organizing platforms like Smash GG. It's just been acquired by Microsoft. Right? I think there's never been a better time for startups in terms of the wider gaming and esports ecosystem, for all of the support services around publishers and their needs,
Right.
tournament organizers and operators and their needs, broadcasters, live streamers, content creators and their needs, the talent management, etc., etc.
Right, definitely. So Gayatri, what are you looking at when you are looking at a prospect company to potentially invest in an esports or gaming? What kind of qualities are you looking in an entity?
Yeah, before I answer to that question, I just want to answer the very first question you asked regarding the publishers and the esports. I think the power dynamics is very interesting, but it's also a symbiotic relationship. The one cannot survive without the other. And I look at esports as an opportunity where, many years ago, you are cool if you're playing at the football team, and rest of the kids are nerds. But now esports has given opportunity for nerds to be the coolest kid. Thinking about a 14, 15-year-old winning a multi-million-dollar deal. So it's not just you have to be a 6-foot-tall athlete, but you can be gifted in a different way, and you can be a very well-known player in this field. So it's kind of, I think it's democratizing sports in a very different level. And think about, sports has always been the biggest consumer ecosystem in the world. And the digitization of sports has taken it to very, very different level. So as an investor, we are very, very bullish about esports. And obviously at an early stage, it's just like any other companies, because most of the time the founders are, starstruck. Oh, I want to do something in esports because I played video games all my life. But there are opportunities like where you want to play, as Asante and Jamie was talking about. There's like infrastructure or tech adjacent, or you want to be in the other side. So I think the entrepreneurs, if they are trying to find where their niche is, they need to understand right now the market is already big and it's getting bigger, but they need to find that niche, that what's their differentiator, and how they can be a different opportunity that they can bring in and build a community around it. I always focus on building a community, because you are serving your community and they're your loyal supporter. There is something that I have said multiple times when it comes to sports. We always think about product market fit when it comes to any of the technology that's coming and we are trying to invest. Esports and sports, it's a very different dynamics. It's like a promise market fit. The moment you start something, there is a loyalty that's surrounding your community, surrounding your product. The moment you can build that loyalty, you are setting yourself for a longer run, for a bigger run. And I think the day the founders, they realize that how can they build that loyalty opportunity around their product, their platform, their games, they can actually create a lot of stickiness around what they're doing. And that's what we investors are looking for. As said, like early stage companies, many of them are just focusing on ideas, and almost 60-70% will not be surviving, right? Right now, the investing landscape has become very, very difficult. Previously, it was like seed round, and then you go to Series A. Now you go to an accelerator program, then you go to multiple seed round, then there's a Series A. So that means the moment you reach Series A, you are a matured company. You're talking about 10 million, 20 million. And especially even this pandemic also, I want to say that think about Nerd Street that raised $11.5 million from Founders Fund. They closed their local host, but then they were able to raise. So there is an opportunity from even from generalist VC funds also who are focused on investing in everything from SpaceX to healthcare to everything. They're also taking interest in esports because the market has become bigger and you cannot ignore it. So my only advice to the entrepreneurs is that if you are planning to get into this industry, don't think about this is a 6 months gig or 1 year gig. This is something that you want to do at least for 5 to 10 years. And if you have that conviction, then go for it. And just like any other industry, just like any other product, service, or anything, you have to have that resilience because it's not easy to be an entrepreneur and it's not easy to raise money. It's not easy to build product. You're wearing multiple hats. And as investors, we consider ourselves just as a facilitator of writing a check, but we want to write a check where the people are actually creating opportunities. And when we find that great opportunity, a lot of investors are going to come and back you. So focus on your game. That's what I can say.
Giovanna, I mean, I would, and absolutely, it's very interesting, you know, Gayatri, hearing you talk. You know, I've done road shows, I've pounded the pavement of Toronto and Vancouver and Silicon Valley in New York. I would say to any entrepreneur, young entrepreneur that's watching this, firstly, check out the Lean Canvas. It's a couple of years old, and I'm sure there's a more modern version. Fill out the Lean Canvas. If you can even fill out those 9 columns on a Lean Canvas, God bless you, you're halfway there. It's tricky with content, and Giovanni, you made a very good point about who owns the IP. The publishers do own all the IP, unlike sports, right? So then for the professional organizations and teams and third-party tournament organizers and anyone, brands, you don't own the IP. So it's the same with betting and wagering, right? And analytics, right? All the AI and, you know, and predictive modeling, you know, math tools, right? For better coaching, for making you a better player. Who owns all the data? And how do you get access to that data? So the publishers have a lot of control. And so therefore also we're talking about content. A lot of what's driving esports right now is content, right? These professional organizations, you know, the top 10 who are valued at 400 million, right? Then valued at like 10 to 12 times their earnings, right? They're making 45 million, 30 million in revenues. Their revenues are not really just coming from esports. A lot of their revenues are coming from content, right? So that's when also like Chinese would say, well, you can't have a monopoly on content if you're patient. And 10 years ago, trying to raise money for like a video game developer or publisher, a lot of money people would say, but it's hit or miss. You know, yeah, sure, you had Grand Theft Auto, but it's lightning in a bottle. But can you do it again? Right. I want to see like annualized. I want to hear the word platform. I want to hear the word technology, right? I want to know that you can scale. And then I think to what Gayatri said about make sure like you have the conviction. Absolutely, it's 5 to 10 years. And, you know, and raising money is like a never ending process. And you are always bootstrapped. And the moment you raise money, sure, you're in esports, you're in gaming, you still have to know a lot of fundamentals about user acquisition and understanding like, what is your product? And then think about it then in gameplay, what's your feedback loop? What's that core gameplay mechanic? I'm collecting coins, right? That I do again and again and again, like in Clash Royale, that brings me back day after day, week after week, year after year, where then my lifetime value that I've spent is $1,000 on that game, right? And when you've got that gameplay loop, right, and you can prove that, and Gayatri said it with your community, translate that with the Lean Canvas as your early adopters, those first people that will actually give you money before your product's quite finished because they really want it, right? And when you've got that, that's when you've got that model worked out. That's when this, you know, all right, maybe the seed, but the Series A comes in and gives you the money to, as they say, put fuel on the fire and ramp up your marketing and scale out. And I would say, all right, so you want to be an entrepreneur in games. Cool. Mobile games, right? Build it, launch it in an undeveloped ecosystem, work out all of your processes, then bring it to America where it's more expensive. You want to be a game developer, you've got the tools. You've got Unity. 5 guys in Sweden made Valheim. Came out of nowhere, boom. Look at the indie hits that we had last year with Among Us, right? Fall Guys. In esports, you know, I think there is a lot of traction. There's a lot of M&A happening. There's good deal flow. And again, it is in the picks and the shovels, right? Streamlabs, supporting streamers, right? Discord communication platform, right? Like Synth AI for like AI, right? AIM Labs, Blitz, player tools. How do I get better, right? How do I learn? So I think there's, you know, read the Founder's Dilemma, learn how to fill out a lean canvas for your idea, right? And you'll be way ahead of the game, because that really forces you to what Gaitra said about understand where your community is and really understand what you're offering them and prove it, because if that community is sticky around you, they're paying for it.
You mentioned, you know, the difficulties with the IP and how it's not quite like the regular, you know, regular sport. You know, the publishers actually own the sport in this case. And, you know, I think Asante, you know, you're in, you do a lot of stuff in the educational space, and that gives you some unique freedom to operate relative to dealing with the IP issues. Can you speak about that, about what kind of opportunities you're seeing in the educational sector?
Sure. So it's really interesting, I guess, my perspective being the only government kind of person on here, right? Just thought about that. So yeah, for us, literally the educational part was really the very attractive part. I mentioned the content side, like you guys are mentioning, and yes, that's huge for us as well. But the educational side is even bigger because really the opportunity, you know, you talk about, you know, billion-dollar business, but we feel that the attractiveness, you know, especially when it comes to STEM and STEAM related activity and tie-ins on the educational side, especially a little younger age, maybe, you know, so obviously the colleges, you know, they're jumping all on this, they're doing the scholarships, but we really feel a lot of the opportunities are even in middle school and elementary, you know. So again, for us, it's all about how do we attract these kids into these kind of fields, but that's not going to be hard because they love this industry, they love this field. I think our part is educating them that, hey, you know, you can literally make a great living, you know, doing this. So it took me a while to convince folks about game development, telling parents, hey, you know, your kid can make games and make money. Now, Jamie, we telling them what? Your kid can play and make money. So, you know, if they say they need to put in that extra hour of practice, right, you're like, oh, well, how much? Like,
all the sports book would say you could get paid by wagering on the games, right?
Right.
It's like you said.
Yeah.
So for us, it's really about STEM activities, and it's so great when you talk about the, you know, the esports and just doing it. A lot of that ties in, obviously, the STEM and STEAM. So for us, you know, how do we build our future workforce with this, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, big attractiveness to that. Obviously, we're bringing, you know, well, at least our job is bringing companies as much as we can as well. But, you know, the startup scene in this space is amazing what's happening. But the educational side, to finish up what you're saying, is we feel that down the line in the next 5 to 10 years, as this industry continues growing, that we want to make sure that our kids are engaged and that they understand that you can actually make a living.
It's a huge opportunity across the entire gaming ecosystem. And fundamentally, like here in the West and in America, we're behind in STEM. We're behind in science, we're behind in math, right? Which are critical. Yet we also know all these younger generations that are playing video games are actually developing the soft skills necessary for a good job.
Exactly.
And we've got now 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds like my daughters, and we're building worlds in Minecraft. And we are socializing and playing around and running around in like open sandbox worlds like Roblox. And you take like Minecraft, where there's like redstone devices, right? And like the level of STEM learning and like emotional learning, is critical. Then if you think about, I feel like we're kind of behind with data too. And we could be more advanced across the entire esports and gaming spectrum. It's so data heavy, right? But again, it comes back to who gets the data and who has access to the data.
So what do you mean when you say data? What do you mean exactly?
The volume of data being generated in game,
Right.
combined with OCR web scraping tools, right? And God bless any API access, right? But the amount of data available from now in like very connected ecosystems, from my browsing to my purchasing to what I'm doing in a game, is tremendously valuable. So when you think about from an education perspective, your child came in here and we're actually like processing the data, and your child came out here and has learned all these skills along the way, and it's quantifiable and qualifiable. That is tremendously valuable. I think from a more business, from esports is one of the most exciting things to come along for the sports betting industry in forever. A brand new audience, right? But it requires a new products, right? And their ability to get the data and our ability to like pass it up and make sense of it and really extract the value, right, is not there yet. I think, in previous years, there was a lot of hype and overvaluations, raising lots of money, and a reality set in for a lot of, we are very nascent, young kids that made these esport orgs. Talk about entrepreneurs, right? Sam at Fnatic, right? The Cloud9, right? Steve over at, Team Liquid, all those pioneers, Nade Shot, competitors turning up with their hardware under their arms in a little back room, right? Coming together, who have started these esports organizations. There's then a reality of like, actually now how do you monetize? Because you're not making it on tournament earnings. And that's where sponsorships come in, right? And that's where knowing who your audience is, and email marketing, and social media marketing, and getting the data and actually understanding who your audience is and what they're doing, where they were, where they came from, what they just went and how to then monetize that. And that's where this whole games as a service, right? And SaaS, everyone's like, we're all obsessed with SaaS right now. But it's true, because there's no limit to what someone can spend on your platform, right? If you set it up right with SaaS. And then it comes down to data, right? It's not just gut instinct anymore. It's like actually like, but again, and that's half the challenge, right? There's so much data. How do you make sense of it? But it then all comes back to IP.
Yeah.
The publishers own the esports, right? And most of them are closed, right? It's like Riot and Activision, it's closed. You need licensing and permission. Not everyone can come in and play. Valve, they're like, cool, kind of, they got the hybrid with Dota and with CSGO, like, yeah, like, let us know, cool. And actually what you then see, you see an unbelievable like competition and market forces and really high quality events and tournaments and experiences. Saying that, you can run the risk of bad experiences. And flip side, Riot, Activision guarantee you a certain experience if they care. Right? They've got to choose to care about the esports. It used to be an expensive line item, a costly community management thing. Really? Now it's like, oh, it's no longer a box copy game that comes out and for 2 weeks is on the shelf and $60, boom. Now it's like, oh, the game comes out, $60. 3 months, DLC, another $20, $30, boom. Oh, now we've got microtransactions like you have on free-to-play, games, right? Boom. I'm now talking to you all the time. Great. Go content creators on Twitch. I'm not really going to worry you about my IP rights because you're promoting my game. I'm crowdsourcing my development with my early access build. I'm crowdsourcing my marketing because you guys are streaming gameplay and talking about it. Brilliant. And now esports. We've got these shiny tentpole events and this competitive. We've got the sexy stars. So now all of a sudden I've got this 365 ecosystem as a publisher where I'm just keeping you in my game year on. GTA 5, 6 years old, 7 years old, 50 million a month in revenue on just microtransactions, right? Where we used to play a game for 2 weeks and put it down. Now we're living inside a game year after year. I've been playing Clash Royale, I don't know how many years. And then you start socializing and building communities. And my daughters, who are 8 and 10, they're making friends and learning how to socialize inside of Minecraft and Roblox. It's look at Fortnite, right? And their party royale mode, and it's music concerts, and it's cultural, it's experiences. Look at Animal Crossing, right? During COVID, it's like it brought families together. And let me check out what you built. And also the whole fashion industry got involved, right? So,
Yeah,
sorry.
I just want to add a few things regarding the gaming. Is like it is right now. There's a huge amount of big data science that gets played in effect in the gaming industry, because when you think about traditional sports, and this is where we also invest, we are still trying to understand the data, the psychology of the consumers who are coming to the game, how much they are spending, what they're looking. But in an esports, being everything virtual, you can track the entire opportunity that's being played. Now, in traditional sports, you think about Moneyball and things like that. I mean, they've literally understood the data analytics of different players in order to understand how can we move, how can we optimize. In esports, think about League of Legends, think about their data analytics service, Mobilytics, and others. It's like they're basically, you can go back and forth so many times to understand how the other players are playing. So you literally can optimize and spend as much as time you want, because you can track everything. And it's a new world of opportunities for players, for publishers, for advertisers, for everybody, and also understanding the very much the psychometry analysis of the players. And I feel there are multiple companies that are actually focusing and working on the neural analysis of what these players are understanding, how they can make their game better, and what's the mental analysis of being a part of a game, the different avatars and everything. So there's like a new type of opportunities that are getting created as more and more we understand the psychology of different players. It's not just the players who are in front of the game and they are playing. There are players who are money makers. There are players who are trying to be part of the game and have different incentives also, so whether it's advertisers, infrastructure, whether it's social media. So there are various opportunities over here. And I feel the digitization of something like this and having opportunity where you can be a part of 24/7, it's creating a new door and a new world. And I feel I'll not be surprised that in the future, esports has surpassed the traditional sports, or there's kind of an amalgamation of esports and traditional sports. I think that's kind of the future. I don't know if I go to 3000, in the year of 3000, I can see there's like a amazing opportunity where a sports player, maybe from Atlanta, is playing with someone who is in Asia, so it's like, it's a different kind of a world with new AR, VR, and another system. And I think esports can definitely bridge that gap.
Yeah.
Think about data and talk about entrepreneurs. Look at Hector Rosario, founder of Flipside Tactics, right, and Stats Helix. He was using data to win Rocket League championships, right? And I think that's going to become more the norm. Gayatri, I hope that future you just envisioned is a little bit sooner, because I want it. But, techno textiles, and I don't need goggles for my VR, AR experience, and it's just bring it.
Yeah. Well, one of like the genesis behind esports was to have these tournaments, to actually get warm bodies, to sell tickets, right? And, to really bring people out of their home and there was a big question was, would this be a good spectator sport? Like, I remember I went to my first tournament to H1Z1 and at the Caesar Palace arena for esports. And, they were trailblazing, because they had celebrities there to host it, and, had a great, arena setup, and, concession stands and tons of people. But it was, there was a question about, like, are people going to enjoy seeing this? What is this going to be like for a spectator? How do they, how do you really bring, like, make it, a craze, like make it something that everybody wants to go to.
I gotta
So-
say that you're a bit of a trailblazer for the fact that you went to H1Z1.
A hot game.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a little bit about that, Giovanna, real quick. And I love Gaia Try how you're correlating esports and sports together, because they have literally brought, that's kind of what's happening with us as well. Obviously, we have professional teams. They all have brand new stadiums, so they were like, esports tournaments. No, but no, what you're talking about there, I think is really, really interesting as far as making sure that, again, as this is growing and seeing that correlation between the two, for us, it's just let us know that, oh my God, this is just a whole nother opportunity, because, we consider ourselves, like Boston, a sports town. And with this technology, and you guys even talk about AI yet, which is coming in the gaming space too, which could be a little scary too, by the way. A lot of these things can be scary as they're being developed. But I just see like the incredible opportunity when you're bringing sports. And so here, we have the NBA 2K, the Hawks, and I literally see, and working with them and seeing with their 2K league and how they're integrating, even with our professional teams. We have a few professional teams here. So again, it's really exciting to see where this plays out.
And to add to what Asante is saying, when you think about it, okay, so the average, and we love this in the esports industry, we certainly love it as a service provider to the non-endemics, right? As to why you should get into esports and why you should spend money. The average age of the viewing audience, right, of the traditional sports in the 50s and the 40s versus esports, which is 24. And then all the investment side are like, right now, for an esports enthusiast, they're spending like average revenue, like $5, right, in terms of sports fan. I'm not sure how they're really calculating that, but for NBA and NFL, right, it's $50, $60, $70, $80. That's where they're like, there is a very big runway here. There is tremendous amount of growth, right? And esports actually came to the rescue of traditional sports during COVID, right? And enabled the athletes to at least stay connected to the teams, and gave them some glimmer of make good, right, for the broadcasters, right, and for their existing, sponsors and partners. It was just fantastic for the Formula One and the NASCAR. Who would have thought, right, that the sim driving would be like the true star, right, in terms of esports and sports. Saying that, we have so much to learn from traditional sports, from Moneyball, health and wellness, how to build a team, how to market a team, right? Think about, all right, great. We've got, Team Liquid, we've got, 100Ds, we've got Fnatic, at TSM, and they're worth 400 million. How much are the Yankees valued at, right? 8.6 billion or whatever. Like we've got a long way to go.
Hey, Giovanna, I love when that light bulb moment you're talking about. We're blessed. We have a DreamHack. They do one of their USA events here in Georgia, right? And last year we had our commissioner, and it's just so funny to see that light bulb moment, especially these politicians, right? Because they're like, what's esports with all this? When they walked in and they saw all of these different big screens and and the concerts, the music, because music and sports go hand in hand. And I just love it. I love it. And then, our commissioner was only supposed to stay, like, to do the announcement. You come check back later in the day, he's still there hanging out, So I love that light bulb moment, man. I told you I had it at Gamescom where, oh my God, it hits you.
It's surreal. It's surreal. It is very different from, going to a sports, game, and, a regular sports game. Like going to an esports tournament looks like you're walking into the future. But it does have cachet because it brings young people. It's a way to get young people to get together and to bring them to, all in the same place, which, for example, it's, the casinos have been long looking at this. Like, this is, the millennials and young people, it's like they aren't going to casinos. They need more warm bodies, young warm bodies to go in there. And so they thought by, making a, esports, component as part of the casino, or, having these tournament arenas, getting young people to come, would help, bring life into the industry. And I've seen that as well. Like, I remember a while back reading that like a Walmart in the South, like opened up an esports, tournament space and part of the, so maybe for brick and mortar, and maybe, for, industries that feel like they need more young people to actually come out of their,
Malls,
caves.
malls, I see a lot of malls converting.
Yeah, right. That would be a great place for tournaments, because malls are really,
I mean, they've all been challenged, right? And then I think
Yeah.
talk about what, guys just said, and, you talk about entrepreneurs and the opportunities, Vindex, right? They just brought Beyond Gaming, which I think came from the UK. They want to roll out 500 LAN locations in America and like 1,000 globally. We had OS Studios here in New York, where Sam Asfahani and a couple of other guys, and he was at like NBA and got NBA 2K going. He's like, I want to build like a dedicated space for Twitch streamers, and I want to have like a bit more of a high-end LAN, kind of like members club vibe. And it was going gangbusters before COVID. And then ironically, they actually did really well during COVID, or thankfully, because they had all the remote broadcast equipment, right? And those spaces actually, and those that could operate them, they became a bit of a premium during COVID. Vegas has had a hard time though, right? Because they really want to get people gambling, and this younger generation doesn't want to necessarily participate in the existing products, right?
Yeah, but they like gambling on, making wagers on
skins and coins
Fortnite and things like that. Yeah.
So everything has to be rethought. And then in the early days, they've had like the fight community, they've had like fight game communities come and do tournaments. And I think they've been looking to like the players to be the spenders, but they're not. The players are there to compete. So the players go up to their hotel room, rip the TVs off the wall so they can be closer to it, so they can practice, right? And they've had like it's been a bit mixed, right? And you've had obviously the HyperX Arena, right? The esports arena that then became the HyperX Arena as a physical venue. And I think we've still got a ways to go, and that's where like esports is not a magic wand, right? Build it and they won't just come. But that's the same with your app. That's the same with your mobile games. It's the same with anything, right? You have to Gayatри's point, it's like you got to have a community that cares about what you're building, right? And what you're building has to have value to them to make it sticky. Right? And we haven't quite found that, right, between esports and Vegas. It's coming though. I think it's also hand in hand with the sports books open up, right? I mean, esports is very global, and Giovanna, to your point about the stadiums, like on the one hand, we need regional, local fandom, right, to really drive affinity and affiliation, right, to local teams, to local stars, to drive the merch and to drive the ticket sales. And traditionally, esports has been very global, and we saw that with the franchise leagues, with Overwatch and Call of Duty, and they were just starting to get going, and then COVID hit and completely blew up all physical events, which has also then kind of caused real problems for like the finals, the international worlds, because teams can't travel, and you can't also necessarily ensure the integrity of your digital event globally, from ping times, right, and just internet connectivity and whatnot. So actually, like COVID, I think is going to sort of double down our focus on local and regional, which is great for local businesses, right, and partnerships and sponsorships. And it's great for now starting to build more traditional sports fandom, like the way the Yankees would in New York, right? Which then can be exported globally, right? Like a Manchester United or a Barcelona.
So being like, looking in like Southeast Asia or in Asia, where esports and gaming is thriving more than it is here. If you like in Seoul, they have gaming cafes on every block. Like, they are so popular. And I wonder how that industry has, been surviving in COVID, if they've been able to figure out a way to keep that. Is it still purring? Is it still as hot as it was? And that might, like it hasn't taken off here to have these like gaming cafes where, Internet cafes were a thing a while ago, but like to have something where just gamers go and do their thing.
I can talk a little bit about that too, because I actually opened one and I did all my research years ago. I did all my research based on Korea though.
Yeah.
The issue, I can tell you the one big issue was like, well, a kid would come in, well, I'm gonna pay $5 or $10 an hour, but I have my own 360 at home, or I have my own console at home, or in Korea, again, by going there, they all live in these small little places, but so they're very big on going out, and going to cafes, but
getting out of the house and freedom.
Yeah. So the culture is just different. And again, I found with those cafes, it's if they have an option, and then now so much is online, So I don't know. I don't know if that business model again
works as well here.
Successful, you bring in the bar, the restaurant, the food, but that's where you generate your money is. It's not just going to be the esports component to make the money.
Yeah, in this Asia, we have seen a lot of people they play the games and they continue till they die. So it's like this is like
we're not as passionate as that. I don't think we're going to stay in 3 days and die in a cafe.
No, we just have children spend $25,000 without us knowing until we get the bill.
Well, in the cafes, you could have like little micro tournaments,
Yeah.
Well, I think that there is, Sandy made a really good point. There are very strong cultural differences in terms of the generations and how we grew up, and the structure of the household and mobility, right, and freedoms, right, and cultural norms. But look, South Korea is the home and the birthplace, right, of esports, right, and they had broadband before they actually have.
What are they on now, Jamie? 7G or 8G?
Brother. And you know what? I got a 5G phone, but I'm driving in my car and I'm dropped to a 3G with 2 bars in New York. And I'm like, so I'm going to play 4K games, 60 frames a second in the cloud? Sure. Right. So, but like mobile. So
talking about that too, once, at least I'm looking at it that way for our state, once 5G and 6G becomes really prevalent, I mean, I really see how this can take off even more, right? And, and I know I heard you guys talking a little bit earlier with blockchain and, smart contracts and all of that. I think once I'm looking at, I call it 2025, because I think by then we actually might be on 6G. That's a game changer. That's a game changer for this industry, especially when you talk about online entertainment, Yeah,
I mean, look at Xbox, right? And their cloud, right? xCloud or whatever it's called, but it's the idea that there are these entire economies and ecosystems in which I can be inside and getting my entertainment and playing games and socializing, and they can be getting all the data, and they can be targeting me better, and they can be upselling me better, right? And they can make it easier for partners, right, to monetize quicker with me, right? It's and I can do all of it anywhere, anytime on this, right? It's like everyone's a gamer now, and with this we can do it anywhere, right? A phone, right? I don't know why it's blocking it out, whatever. And we are again
magic tricks, Jamie.
We're behind in the West. We're behind with mobile esports,
right?
And so when we think about growth, huge opportunities there,
right? Yeah. What are go ahead, Gayatri.
I just want to add that I think this is so true when it comes to especially over here, we're still with this Angry Birds or Farmville. This is like the mobile gaming has to elevate. And I think the technology, I mean, also the phones, I mean, I don't want to criticize, but we are still in the iPhone 7 and iPhone 11 or 12 or whatever number it is. They all look the same and there's not much of a change. I feel like people like nowadays, if you are stuck somewhere, you're basically on your phone, on Facebook or other things, what you're doing. But I think there's a huge opportunity to take that where people can play games, and you don't want to play those stupid, I mean, I don't play Candy Crush, and I hate those things, but I never liked it.
Time waster on the train with no Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
You just turned off a lot of people there.
There's I think we're excited, right? You look at PUBG Mobile, you look at Call of Duty Mobile, right? And the growth of like mid-tier. And I think to your point, Asia are just like really pushing it on mobile esports, right? Mobile gaming. And I think we here in the West will catch up to that.
We'll
But again,
catch up.
you know, our network of communication is a bit hodgepodgey, right? And everything's pulled down by that one point of failure or the lowest common denominator in the network, right? Of multiple points, just messes it, right? So
I'm actually shocked that, like, you look at Pokemon, right? And there's not more AR games out here. I mean, VR, okay, I don't want to beat up on VR folks out there, man, but literally to me, their time, you better hurry up because those glasses are coming quick. Those Apple, they're showing them out there and getting people ready, right? And I'm just like, with AR games, I just see the opportunity with, again, going back to this 5G, 6G thing, man, when you're literally your whole environment, even us here, we could probably have an avatar or something pop up. And I just really think the next couple of years, with the technology, and I don't even talk about AI and what that's going to be bringing to the gaming industry.
So it's interesting because I think Riot, right? Riot have been like quite pioneering with their use of AR for their for their openings, right? Ivana's talk about like these in-person stadium events, and do people want to go, and how are you going to entertain them? I mean, Riot and their worlds is epic, and they've
Right.
really like pushed
That's
their
good.
music. To Sante's point about the music industry and esports and AR, and this just incredible extravaganza. Yeah,
Right.
VR is still tricky. I mean, PlayStation VR is surprisingly like doing nicely, right? But we're so social and we're all like two-way
Right.
interactive, but then hold on, I'm going to put on my goggles and I'm going to be completely disconnected from my environment. But I'm in a virtual world. So it's not quite there yet, right? It's not quite not really consumed.
They need 5G, 6G, but it's coming.
They told us about that for 3G and then 4G or something.
It's coming, buddy. And
You're right.
VR again, where you could have 100 people in there, so very social.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that, Jamie. That social experience is a big part of gaming. Even when our kids are playing these games online, and that's their social experience, being able to talk smack to each other and do all that. That was kind of what old sports used to be, right?
Right.
Well, still is, I guess. But now, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. It's like meet me in my server. Come and look at my house, right?
Another thing I just want to point out, I mean, this is like so important when it comes to when you're looking at gaming. There's a question actually here about betting industry. Betting industry is kind of huge, right? You think about how things are changing when it comes to US versus Europe, the betting industry. I mean, right now, so many states are opening up, they're legalizing the betting industry, and there is like a huge push. And if you look at the data, even in the betting industry as well, so that's another big, ginormous opportunity that's going to play into effect. And I feel like US is yet to take that opportunity. I remember around 2018 or late 2017, I was speaking, and I was with a bunch of NFL players, and they were working on a certain gaming and betting opportunity. And I think there was like the first or the second, like it was very early days, and New Jersey was going through like what they're going to do next. And there are fewer others who are opening up their states when it comes to betting. And I said, like, most states is going to follow through, and we will see a huge surge in this industry. And I think that realization of, especially when you look at betting in US, it still have a very negative connotation. It's like, oh, I'm going to bet and I'm going to lose all my money and I'm going to, be that bad person. Whereas compared to Europe and, Paddy Powerhouse, William Hill, and others, it's like they look at this industry more like something where you can actually make money. One, and they have created opportunities where people can make money legally. People can make money by investing in other startups, or like doing something which is much more legalized and not under the table. And I think that's where there's a huge amount of billion-dollar opportunity that actually we are missing over here. And I feel, especially for the last few years, things are changing. And I just want more startups to come and play in this industry, because there's like a social media aspect of betting. And I consider that that's like a cool way, like, okay, if someone, Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or whoever, Patrick Mahomes, they're playing and I can bet and I see who's going to do better, or compared to betting like somebody's getting married, whether, I don't know, it's Meghan Markle or Kate, whatever, and they are what dress they are wearing, what color. So it's just like it can go to a different amount of, craziness. And I feel like that's an industry where you are actually working on your passion. Even your grandma will be interested to know what dress somebody else, whoever queen or princess they are wearing. And it's like, it's a different kind of a genre we can open up. And there's a lot of money that needs to be unlocked here. And a lot of companies and startups can play in this area in a much better way, and I feel like US, and especially with the regulations, we need to open up. And I'm not a big fan of that every state have their own regulations. It becomes enormously difficult for startups to play in this area. It's good for companies like DraftKings or others. Think about FanDuel and others. They literally got wiped out by private equity firms when they came. So early stage, if you're an early stage investor, it becomes very difficult with the amount of dilution that's going to come in effect, because there are not many players who are investors in this area that can actually take that much of burnout. So when you have different, all these legal systems, the amount of money that you have to spend with your lawyers is huge. And I think as Giovanna is here, she can vouch for it. And I feel like there needs to be a better regulation, because the betting industry is another huge amount of opportunity. You don't have to be very good with your fingers also in order to, so that's one thing I just want to throw it out.
No, for sure. Yeah, we are running a bit out of time, but we have until 8:30. So
can we just pause, and for any entrepreneur still watching this, we now know what Guy is going to buy.
Right. I'm starting to start off like right after this panel.
Got to move to Guernsey.
Good info. And you're right. We are so
like social wagering on who's going to get married or which esport dude's going to do.
That's right. So you're almost gamification a little bit.
Totally. Boom. There it is. Get your deck done.
Yeah. No, but you're absolutely right, Gayatri. I think that it's inhibiting growth in this space with the, that we don't have we have inconsistent laws throughout the country regarding betting and sports betting. It may be legal to gamble, but it's illegal to bet on sports, and there's all this variation, and it just makes it really, we need uniformity, and it's been a longstanding problem. But
it's going to be huge. I'm sorry. No, I said it's going to be huge, because when you have the NBA, NFL, and all MLB endorsing sports betting,
right,
it's happen in a matter of time.
But that's really like
bet in crypto. That's a total speculation, but I feel like there's not much happening when it comes to sports. We're basically restricting esports a lot in this country, and I hope the regulation change for much better. And this is better for all of us, for entrepreneurs, for consumers, and startups. It's a newer ecosystem, and I think we are not doing a great job in taking care of it from the policy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because even with blockchain technology, I feel like that blockchain technology is great for payment systems, for in-game purchases, as well as like trading skins and betting with skins. But you in some states, like even Massachusetts, you can't bet a skin. You can't even bet an electronic asset. So it's really a mess. It's a mess, and it's definitely stifling technological progress and investment, and it's a real problem. But hopefully, we can get some motivation here, because I think it would definitely spur the economy and innovation. I mean, we've got so much talent in Massachusetts alone, just from the educational, all these great universities. So we have so much, so many great engineers, and they could be working on this kind of technology, but they can't get investment because there's so much legal uncertainty. But speaking of blockchain and skins and, and sort of IP, one of the things I think that is, sort of making also progress in innovation in gaming and esports is the fact, that everything is, there's no interoperability. You can't like trade skins. You can't trade electronic assets that you bought in one game and give it to another user. Everything's locked down. And it's just, some games allow you to do that. But in the future, it'd be great to have, an electronic marketplace where you could sell your electronic assets. You could trade them. I mean, some games do allow you to do that, but it's not,
Well, maybe that's what NFTs really should be about, right?
Right.
But
right.
it'd be nice to think that the Efinity platform that's coming really does mean that, to put in a load of work on my NFT, I haven't used up, 4 years worth of electricity or the equivalent of a European town for a year just to make a nifty, right?
Well, there's different ways of implementing your like consensus algorithms to make it a little more
I'll figure it out.
friendly. Yeah, we could work on that problem, but yeah, that is a problem.
I keep going back to 5G, 6G, but once that kicks in too, that, literally the computing power part, the gas fee part, I think that's gonna, the other protocols that's gonna come in and take care of that.
You're right.
Say one thing that, when it comes to NFTs, I wrote about this in late 2017, and those are like, boom, where everybody started taking interest in blockchain, and suddenly everybody's developing coins. And I talked about this, like, the non-fungible tokens, and those days they were called CryptoKitties. And now people are actually waking up, and everybody's like, most of the VCs who have no knowledge about NFT, they're like, what's NFT? I have to know, and I have to invest. And I feel that there's this thing that what Jamie said, like picks and shovels. This is what the NFT is like. This is a future multi-trillion-dollar industry. I'm just looking at. You have Wall Street where you're betting on commodities. This is a digital marketplace that's going to set up. I think the future is my kids, my grandchildren, and all our grandchildren. I think they will be like betting. They will be, selling. This is the new kind of Wall Street that we are looking at. And I feel like NFT is just the beginning of it. On the esports side, you can do anything, with the digitization. And we right now are looking at, think about, this is all started with our grandfathers, grandparents are, trading baseball cards in their attic to where it has come from. Right now, the trading opportunity, what we see, it's huge. You don't have to do it with your neighboring kids. You can do with someone in Africa, someone in Latin America, someone in Greenland, wherever they are. I feel like it's like the world is your oyster when it comes to this digital marketplace. And it is just the starting, like people who will be creating a platform like Coinbase or others or exchanges, they are the future of this big unicorn market. And I know the focus is right now more on who is selling the most expensive NFTs. And I remember early 2018, Christie's were actually, or like late 2017, Christie's were actually looking at that was like the beginning. And I remember I was getting pitched. Somebody was trying to develop something with Golden State Warriors. And I'm so glad nowadays I'm seeing that NBAs and others, they are, getting into this. And when we talk about this gaming and publishers, even in traditional sports, the federations, they play a huge role how they want to trade players, how much players can do. And us being in sports, we have been very much involved in understanding this kind of a similar dynamics where the players cannot do many things. A friend of mine, Spencer Dinwiddie, he is an NBA active player in Brooklyn Nets, and he has been developing, the NFTs and other opportunities in the blockchain. And the NBA came after him, and I have a lot of regards for Adam Silver, but they just didn't want him to do anything all by himself because they wanted to benefit from what he is doing, because for them, he's a commodity. And it took a long battle, and I'm so glad he won it. But this is a kind of opportunity that we're seeing, that even in esports, this like, is similar like with IP and who owns what. And I feel like this is a different kind of a battle zone that's going to come up in the future of this digitization. But it will be very interesting to see how the market is going to play in effect. But again, from an investor standpoint, I feel like we are here to unlock huge opportunities, and it's just the beginning of that.
I totally agree. I mean, from a technological standpoint, I feel like with advent of blockchain and NFTs, this is like the next internet revolution. I mean, this is going to revolutionize, all payment systems and exchanges and marketplaces, and all. It's going to infiltrate like so many different areas, and the potentials are endless. But just like with betting, I think there are some issues with regulations, like are NFTs a security? Is it something that's going to be regulated by, the Security and Exchange Commission? Because, in the previous administration, there was a tightening on that. And so we'll have to see what happens. Will there be another ICO boom? It's unknown. And I would love to actually see the technology come to fruition, but we have to kind of see what happens. I mean, I think the ICO, ICM boom was great, but it had a short life, and it would be nice to let the technology develop and get investment and get excitement and let it go to its potential without being stifled by government.
Was that additional currencies?
Were you directing that to government? The only government person on this?
What'd you say?
Oh, I said, were you directing that to me? Because I'm the only.
Yeah, that's right.
Was, man. She was looking directly at you, as I'm saying. She was like.
But I agree too, and I'm excited. I agree with both what you said. I think that literally, it is a new Web 3.0. The opportunities are going to be incredible for this space. But literally, I look at it more even on the content creation side, because now literally for a musician to be able to, you may not need record companies or production companies or, hey, and then that secondary sale, with a lot of you on this smart contract, forever and ever, you will always be paid on the resale of it. There's always going to be that. And so I do think it's a game changer. And I agree, Gayatri. I think this is literally, to me, just kind of like the first app, this NFT stuff, because once these other protocols, as we're seeing grow, and even in the crypto space, and as they, Ethereum 2 and all this stuff, these new, you watch, they're going to get better at it. And I think, like I was saying earlier, I think that they'll just get more efficient. And then I'm just looking at how the creative minds, get behind this. You're talking about some of the smartest people in the world who are working on this stuff, right? And that's the one thing I love about even talking about when you talk about esports and gaming and all. Even on this panel, I'm just excited to be along with all you smart people. But you're talking about people who, in my opinion at least, are using both sides of their brain. So you get a chance to get people who are analytical, and you get the creative folks too, and in a space, which is amazing, the opportunity to me. So I expect in the next couple of years, especially as a technology, I know I keep harping on that, but as the technology keeps getting better, I just put these minds on it, man, and we're going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out.
I hope so. Well, with, speaking of, the government or the law or stifling, in technological progress, what about, in the news recently, we've seen, streamers, Grand Theft Auto streamers getting copyright takedown notices for, playing the siren while they're streaming on Twitch, or, what is that going to do to sort of the streaming rage? And I think in some ways it might actually provide some opportunities for startups to figure out ways to start to bleep those sounds out or replace them, some software that could come in and replace it. Or is it going to be, something that, the streamers maybe get together and fight that, say that this is a fair use, this is not, I'm just I'm just sharing my experience while I'm playing the game, and this is, you know, not a copyright infringement. I mean, so this, it's sort of an interesting, you know, play there. Again, the publisher is sinking in their teeth into something, or maybe copyright holders, maybe not the publisher in that case, but you know, it's.
Well, you mentioned
On a
music.
high level, oh, go ahead, Jamie.
Well, you mentioned music, and Asante, you mentioned it. God forbid an artist might actually get paid what he's worth in perpetuity for, right? And then again, we're talking about a sound library. Right? Giovanna, you blew my mind the other day when you even brought that up. I was like, wow, like, amazing that you caught that. And I think, you know, so that's where contractually, I think, you know, the music library companies, right, and they're probably never really sort of thought through a sound effect being used in a game. The Rockstar publisher probably paid to put it in the game, right? But then those rights didn't extend through to the Twitch platform. I think it blows my, I mean, Twitch is like 10 years behind YouTube with their content ID system, right? With music. And it blows my mind that any streamer can't have any kind of music track. And if they've got 10 viewers, they pay 5 cents, right? And if they've got 1 million viewers, well, then they're paying, right? Because it's got value. And I don't know if the streamers would get anywhere, right? It makes me want to weep to think that you have to bleep it out, right? The solution is to bleep it. And I think, I imagine contractually, legally, I hope that there'd be a solve for that, right? But it sort of shows, you know, Twitch is just really behind with having all of those agreements in place, right? They're like 10 years behind YouTube. Facebook Gaming's like 5 years behind YouTube Gaming, right? And there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to have that structure in place.
Well, I would say I kind of agree a little bit, Jamie, but the other part, man, again, man, in the gaming industry, you know, literally tomorrow there's going to be something that's going to throw something in and mess everything up, you know, and just like, where did this come from? But when you talk about these new, streaming is relatively new as well, you know, in my opinion. So again, now you're addressing all of these issues as they come up, but they will always be coming up because in this industry, you're talking about the smartest and the most creative people. And they will
Yeah, we're on the cutting edge. So
it was inspired marketing.
Always going to be challenging IP issues. And, you know, I was going to mention that even a Carlton dance, you know, I remember how that became, you know, but it was really interesting to see how that played out because that literally shows you kind of, you know, that, hey, man, you don't own this. This is a virtual, you know, IP. Anyway, so
it was an entrepreneurial move by the sound library.
And all the lawyers on this call, man, you guys will always be employed if you work this industry.
Yeah, well, we are getting close to time, so I want to get, you know, some thoughts from each of you about what take homes you would like to share for our audience.
We've got like 8 questions, right? That are.
I know. Well, we don't have so much time, but yeah, we've got some questions. Is there one that you wanted to try to tackle? But
Well,
I want to make. I don't know how long your takeaways are going to be.
So my takeaways would be wagering in esports apparently is around 13 billion right now. Okay. And I would say that, you know, other forms of types of gaming and entertainment, look, it's never over in games. You know, Dungeons and Dragons, right? You know, Magic the Gathering, right? Digitized and had great success. Chess, where did chess come from? The original esport, right? Crushed it last year. And I would say, you know, with puzzle games, you know, there's always opportunities, right? It's all just about how are you taking a puzzle game formula and reinterpreting it and putting your own spin on it. And then I really like the one from Amelia about sports. Now, apparently it's an advantage that esports can change the rules, right? Sure, fundamentally, like the rules are kind of in place, but supposedly esports has an advantage on traditional sports in that the developers can make changes and they can get rid of rules that aren't really working and they can keep adapting and growing with the audience needs. And that is an advantage over traditional sports. So you can still build an audience around the core offering, right? But then, you know, so I would say that's part of my takeaway, and thank you for letting me rant.
You guys got a takeaway here for us? You got Asante? Yeah.
Yeah, good. And I don't want to follow these guys. These guys are going to drop the mic, and I don't want to follow. I just want to say how exciting and the opportunity is, and I'm just, great, and great, like what we're doing here in Georgia. The opportunity is incredible, but even bigger than that, I look at the future again, and especially this future workforce coming out in this in the next 5 to 10 years, and the opportunities that's going to exist. And believe it or not, it's just not going to be esports because some of these skills are so similar that you're going to see kids be able to go in all type of different fields just from getting a lot of these STEM related skills they'll be developing. So just really, again, for the future and for, hey, all you participants and your kids, pay attention to them, man. They're onto something right now.
My takeaway will be, first, I would like to say that this is the most diverse panel that I've ever been. Think about someone coming from the government side, someone coming from the IP side, a lawyer, someone from the industry, and someone, from the investment side. And it's such, amazing opportunity, especially for the listeners, to think about different perspective that we are coming from. And what I want to say is that as we grow, as this industry is going, and I personally, we just don't invest in esports, we invest in everything sports, and technology adjacent to it. So for us, it's like, I feel the regulations is going to change, but you need to understand where and how far your company, your technology is going to go, and be that nimble tech, so that when the regulations are changing, you can also swiftly change to it. But I strongly feel that, there's a big part that's going to play in effect when it comes to data, when it comes to IPs. And I definitely feel that the lawyers have a big role to play in this entire industry. And as investors, we are trying to understand that how much these entrepreneurs can balance and focus what they need to do. Because at the end of the day, they just want to write codes, they want to build teams, they want to build community. And to them, there are these other noises when it comes to play in effect, whether it comes in regulations and IPs, and who can be the better partners. For us as an investor, we just want to be, just write a check and be helpful and bring the right network access. And for entrepreneurs, they have to wear there's so many hats. So I just want to say to them that be prepared and understand the landscape. And the landscape in esports, especially in esports, is changing so fast that we are still trying to grapple. Like, okay, this is happening. Okay, next there's something new is coming up. So be open to change and create technology that's not for now, but that's for the future. And I think that could be an amazing thing for all of us, for us to invest also.
Yeah, I would echo what you said, Gayatri. There was an interesting Supreme Court case that came out on Monday with Google and Oracle, and the Supreme Court found there was no copyright infringement for Google to use like 11,000 lines of code of the Java API owned by Oracle. And the reason they said that is because what Google had done with it was transformative, innovative, and it was enabled interoperability. And so to me, it kind of sends a message that, that if you're making something innovative, if you're using a bit of some other technology to transform it in a way to create something new and to preserve interoperability, there might be a space for you there, even if you are using IP from another entity. And, so just innovate, be creative. I'm not suggesting using other entities' IP, but there may be, a future for a fair use there to create a transformative, innovative, interoperable use. If it's a marketplace, electronic marketplace to share electronic assets across all platforms or something like that, there may be a space there for something like that. But this has been a phenomenal panel. Super fun to be with you guys and to be talking about such a great topic. Love it. Thank you so much. And I'll hand it to Katya.
Yes, I don't have much to add. other than thank you all so much. We've done a couple esports events in Cambridge, and I'm always, wowed by just what I learned, number one. So I always learn something, which is great. I don't know much about it. And I always go back the next day and start reading about all of the stuff, because I just think you guys have uncovered so many great opportunities. So thank you all so much. Thank you to my other colleagues in San Diego, in Atlanta, and in South Florida for doing this together. I think this, we held everyone this whole time, so that's the proof after months of Zoom that this was a really good talk. So I want to again thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. And I think we have a lot of questions. So, we might work on addressing some of these maybe in a later podcast, or, we have already been talking about a follow-on event that talks about STEM and STEAM and things like that. So stay tuned for everybody out there as well. So with that, I'm going to let everybody go. Enjoy their late evening or early evening, depending on where you are, or morning. And thank you all very much. Take good care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.